This is Stronger Than My Father with Marcus Minis.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. I am your host, Marcus Minis Sr. Those that are new to Stronger Than My Father podcast may want to ask, what is Stronger Than My Father podcast? This podcast is designed to bring more awareness to fatherhood with the hopes of one day making fatherhood cool again. Hey, you guys, I can't do this work by myself, so I have to thank my producer, Mr. Jim McCarthy at jmvos.com. So if you're in need of a podcast producer or someone to do some voiceover work, please reach out to my good friend, Jim McCarthy at jmvos.com. I always like to thank my sponsors, supporters, and people who follow us on social media. Thank you so much for following us and putting your comments on YouTube. Sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't, but I thank you. So thank you so much for all your support of this podcast as we continue to move forward in 2024. So let's go to work. Hey, my guest is a gentleman I've been knowing for a long time, a long time. Yeah. I'm proud of him. For number one, taking care of my sister. So if you can figure out, this is my brother-in-law, Mr. Nathan McDougal. So thank you so much, Nate, for coming on. This has been a time in the work to talk.
Indeed.
And talk about fatherhood.
Yes, sir.
But first, before we go in, I would like to say personally, thank you so much for taking care of my sister.
Oh, man, no problem. It's been my pleasure.
Taking care of my baby sister. You know, me and my sister's real close. She keep me in line.
Yeah.
Go off on me from time to time. She's just like my mom. So thank you so much for taking care of her, especially when she fought cancer. You was there. Yeah. 100% for her, and you made my dad very proud.
Yeah, man. It's my honor, man. It's been my honor, man. It's been the one of the proudest moments of my life, man, to be by your sister's side every step of the way. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. So let's go into fatherhood. So for my audience who do not know who Nathan McDougal is, tell them a bit about yourself and where you grew up at.
I'm a Nashville native. I've grown up all around Nashville. Actually, I was born in West Nashville in Preston Taylor Public Housing. Actually, my family's for Preston Taylor Public Housing. Both my parents, in an attempt to escape poverty, we moved all around Nashville from one Section 8 housing apartment complex to the other. So from Antioch to East Nashville, so on and so forth. Just living all over Nashville. So I lived out south, I've lived out west, I lived out east. Pretty much every part of Nashville, I've been there. So I'm a Nashville native through and through.
Now, we go to schools that we're going to talk about. I know you're a Pearl Cone alum.
Yep. Yes,
Congratulate to the Pearl Cone football team for winning the state.
Yes, sir. State championship.
Yeah. So that's the first one since John Henderson, right?
That is. That's the first one since the back-to-back championships in the 90s. Yep.
Okay. Because John had won 2 back-to-backs, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Were you at school with John?
No, I came right after they won. Me and Marsha got to Pearl right after that.
Okay. And I know you're an MTSU alum.
Yep.
All right. Yep. So that's cool. Let's go into fatherhood. One thing I asked you pre-production is, I know your name is McDougal, but your father is Wade, right?
Yep.
So tell my audience, because this is most sons has has a father's last name. Now, I know it's some with child issues and stuff like that. Yeah. The mom don't want to have a dad name, and that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
But tell my audience, why did you not take on your father's last name?
Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. My parents were young when I was born. They were teenagers. My father was 18, my mother was 17. So they were both graduating from Pearl Cone when I was being born. They weren't married. They never married. They had 3 more kids. My siblings are all under my same mother and father, but they never tied the knot, never got married. So I always, actually, all of my siblings had my mother's last name. We never took my father's last name. And then when I was about high school age, they changed my siblings. All of their last names changed to my father's last name. And I'm so old at that time. My identity is so well established. I asked my father, like, you want me to change my last name too? And he was like, nah, you don't have to. Not really. You don't need to. So I was like, oh, well, I've been a McDougal for this long. It's like I'll maintain it as McDougal. And of course, McDougal is such a distinguished last name. Like every time I'm in school and it's roll call time, they say McDougal. Kids look up and say McDonald's, McDougal, from McDougal. So, you know, I already had to get used to that and really come into my own and own that. Like it felt disloyal for me to change it after, by the time I'm 14, 15 years old. Yeah. It had already sealed my identity around it. I had to become proud of it by then, so I didn't want to stray away from it. So the primary reason is because my parents were never married. That's why I didn't take on my dad's last name. Although my dad has been there every day of my life since birth. And for each of my siblings, my dad is like one of my best friends. So we still talk daily to this day. So yeah.
That's just, you know, it was something that was curious to me. And I didn't know the story. I know you said you want to save it for the podcast.
Yep.
So I didn't know why you didn't, you know, most kids, most boys who definitely have a connection to their dad. Wants to have a last name. And so for me, it would be weird not to have Manice. And people made fun of my last name too. Mac knees, my knees hurt. So I had all of that growing up. So what did you learn? As you know, the statistics are alarming for kids growing up without a father. Married or unmarried, kids don't have their dad. What did you learn to help develop you to the man who you are today? What are some of the tools that he taught you to help you become the man, the father, and the husband who you are today?
Oh, man. My dad taught me so much throughout my life, throughout childhood. When I was about 6 years old, my father started coaching football. And actually, I've said this before, man, my father was such a good father. He made fatherhood look so fun and engaging that when I was young, I could not wait to become a dad. Like he made it look that fun that I couldn't wait to become a dad. And I've said if I could be half the dad that he was, like my son would be set. He'd be in the money. And I know already that I'm not half the dad that he was because my dad coached football, baseball, basketball, and I'm just getting my son through football. And I'm like, man, we done. This is exhausting. I'm tired. Like we done for the season. Let's take a break. So when I was about 6, he started coaching football. We started playing baseball. He forced me to play basketball. I wasn't even interested in that. And we were just locked in together. And in the midst of that, not only are you learning through the team sports, but we are just talking on the ride home back and forth. Even when we're not living together, he's dropping me back off at home. He's telling me stories about how he grew up, about how guys that he grew up with, we're passing them on the street and they are drug addicts now or they're homeless now. Like, guys are stopping us on the street trying to sell us like fake jewelry. And he's like, man, that guy used to be the best basketball player you ever seen in your life. He'll throw up a shot and he couldn't miss. And if he did miss, he know exactly where to go to catch the rebound. Like that's a story he used to tell me. And like now I'm seeing this guy trying to like hawk fake jewelry to us. And he was like, man, them drugs is, you know, something else. And this is internalizing in my mind, like this is what happens to you. And that was another big thing is we were in the community together. And often my cousins will say, and not only that, but other people in the neighborhood that I've grown up with, my best friends, they'll be like, man, he just wasn't your dad. He was everybody's dad. And he really played a big role like that. And one of the biggest things he taught me, man, was sacrifice. Like a man sacrifices and puts others first. And in his case, he really put the community first and like was really throwing himself out there in a lot of different ways. So he taught me a ton. I'll be on here talking all day, telling you stories.
Because you brought up something that I thought about. Me being a mentor, I have to share myself with with other young men. My wife, you know, this parent texted me yesterday. She said, thank you for your wife allowing to share you with other people who need your help. How did that affect you, you know, seeing that you had to share your dad? Because your dad had to be a father to some of these other kids. Because most people I've talked to, a parent said, well, why I put my kid in football so my kid can have a mentor or a father figure. I've heard that numerous times. Numerous times that people ask me that. So did that make you feel sad or selfish? Like, man, my dad always talking to this kid, and what about me? Because I bring my boys with me all the time. Like today, shout out to my son, MJ, again. I forgot Jim for helping me set up this podcast. So MJ is critical to helping his dad. So What about you? How you feel about your dad? You had to share your dad with other kids playing football.
Man, for me, never, because once again, I bounced around a lot as a kid. We moved around. So I never went to the same school for like more than 2 years until I got to Pearl Cone.
Yeah.
So like neighborhood friends and stuff like that I made, but couple of years later, I was moving on. My most consistent friendships were those team sports and like cousins and things like that. So I never felt like I was sharing or I was missing out or I was losing out, because those kids that he was mentoring and he was looking out for, those were my friends.
Got it.
And I was always conspiring to spend as much time with them as possible. So when he's dropping them off at home, we're in the back of the car like, hey, ask your daddy, can we spend a night? And we hoping that they parents, and that was another thing that I didn't realize until I got older, the impact of parenting, because sometimes he would go to drop kids off and no one would answer the door. And like we're just trying to get together so we can have pizza party, go to the house and have pizza and play Nintendo. And he trying to drop a kid off at home and they parents don't answer the door. And I'm in the back like, yes, we gonna go kick at the house and kick it. And he like, man, come on. And now they got to stay with us until their mama answer the phone or call or so. And you know, this back in the 90s and stuff like that. Different, very, very different time. But I never felt like I was missing out or losing out or losing him to others, because it just felt like a much more community based thing. So we were all in it together. Is how it always felt to me.
Well, I mean, I had to do the same thing, dropping kids off. Darn, your dad sound like, because he helped me coach my first baseball team. And I'm truly thankful for your dad for that, coaching my. And I ain't no coach, man. I'm an organizer. I'm a visionary, but I ain't not a baseball coach.
It's a different kind of thing.
I did it 2 years, and I'm out. So let me ask you this: now you're a father. Let's go into fatherhood. You know, me and you both are fathers. I know you have one boy and 2 girls. But let's talk about the boys. Because we mentor. What have you taught your son? Let me ask you this first. Do you catch yourself as a father doing some of the things that your father did for you?
Oh man, I've turned into my dad. Like I walk around the house saying the same catchphrases, throwing out the same thing, walking in the same mannerisms, and I'm like, man, I'm like a werewolf, man. Y'all done turned me into my father, man. This is crazy. And sometimes I call him and tell him like, I'm sorry, man. Everything I did to you to make you say those things you said to me, I terrorized you as a kid. I see why. I see why you did everything you did, because my dad used to be used to have to be strict and tough, and used to have to come down hard sometimes and be like, hey, you know, how dads are, disciplinarian, and you have to be that way because kids are gonna push limits, and you don't really learn that until you become a father. And he said it all makes sense now, huh? And we laugh it off. But yeah, definitely, I do a lot of the things. Even my brother and I talk about it because he's a dad now too. He has 3 kids also, a boy and 2 girls like me, and he says everything that our dad did when we were younger makes so much sense now. So yes, often I find myself doing and saying a lot of the same things that my dad did. And I'll also say, of course, this is one of your major themes. Me and a very close, he's like a brother but a cousin, we're discussing earlier. A lot of guys are missing out on that. Like, fatherhood can be stressful. It can be exhausting even. It can take a lot out of you. The kids, you know, they don't know when to stop. You might come home from work. You might be tired. They jumping on you. They pulling on you. They want this. They want that. But, man, there's really nothing more rewarding than that fatherhood. Then when that kid look up at you, or when you come in the house and they get excited, there's nothing more rewarding than that. And a lot of guys are cheating themselves out of that experience, pursuing something else or chasing after something that they think they're supposed to have, or how they think life is supposed to be. So I do have to throw that out there, is that I was just discussing that with someone else, man. A lot of guys are cheating themselves out of fatherhood, but they don't know it, because you don't really get to see what the reward is until you're in the midst of it, until you're experiencing it.
Well, let me ask you this. Being a father and raising your son, are you incorporating anything different from what your father taught you? Are you incorporating something different for him to see before we really get deep into the fatherless? I want to ask that question before, because I forget.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the biggest thing is we're in a married 2-parent household where me and my wife are locked in on one accord, and so he sees us as a loving couple, and not even that we're a loving couple, is that we are a locked in black family unit. So my parents were never, they lived together, they didn't live together, they're on good terms, they're not on good terms, they're amicable, they're co-parenting, but they're never married, right? So they've always been together, not together, they just always been parents. So they've never been married. So I didn't grow up in a household where my parents were married. My son sees his parents married. That's probably the biggest thing that I bring to my son that my father didn't bring to me. And I don't even knock my parents for that. Once again, they were kids. Yeah. And so it is.
Because some people hold grudges like that when the parents wasn't together.
Oh man, definitely not. Once again, my parents were teenagers. I went to college. I have 3 kids that I'm raising using techniques that I learned from them. They came from nothing. Like I said, they were in Preston Taylor Public Housing. They took me out of Preston Taylor Public Housing, and we went above and beyond. So, man, it can't be a grudge. They did more than I ever could have asked for.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's always good. You know, we outside of having divorced parents, we both have similar roles as a father. My sons, I try to let them see me an example of a good father. And you know me, I want to try to do everything daddy doing. You know me well enough. You've been knowing me for over 20 years. So, you know I want to still make my parents proud every day I can. But let's go into the fatherless. Statistics are alarming. I was at Leeds School, off First Avenue, a week ago. Now, I didn't know it was across the street from the projects. So I'm just following my GPS, and I was like, whoa, where am I at? I was like, oh, heck no. Somebody gonna break in my car, you know. All the things start going into your mind because the projects are over there. The projects is next door. Why do you think, and I asked Toy this, why do you think a lot of people struggle from getting out the projects? You said your parents grew up there. I asked Toy one day, I was like, don't these people want better? Don't the people? And I don't want to be offensive to nobody in the projects.
Understand.
This is just my mentality because I always wanted better for my family. Like when I lived in Parkwood, it was great until I started seeing crime. And I was like, I don't want my wife, and you know, I'm working second shift. I didn't want my wife to be in danger. But why do you think a lot of people in the projects have a hard time breaking that cycle?
Well, it's a number of reasons, I would say, because I spent most of my youth, especially my juvenile life, in and around public housing, project housing, and even outside of that, it's not the projects per se, but it's Section 8 housing. I mean, it's government assisted. They helping you pay the rent or whatever the case may be. And it's a number of reasons. First and foremost, it's a lot of people in the projects or it's in public housing is because it's designed to be that way. Right? So we can go back historically, and that's a big thing for me, is often we ask why things are still the way they are, and I think we have to ask why they are that way in the first place. So if we go back historically to redlining, when black people were earning good money and trying to get houses in good neighborhoods or build up good neighborhoods, they were not allowed to. They were discriminated against strategically, and this was condoned by the U.S. government even, and they were pushed into these public housing projects, right? And then they couldn't leave because you can't go to this neighborhood. You're getting chased out of this neighborhood. People throwing bricks through your windows. They're burning crosses in your yard, right? So then you're forced into these public housing projects, and over time, these living in this neighborhood becomes normalized, right? And it becomes the most comfortable place for you because you know everybody there, and the crime that's taking place often it's not even being committed against you. So for like what you just said, you pull up and you're like, oh, this is a project right here. Somebody go break into my car. I remember when I was in high school, I stayed with my aunt, and by this time my dad had finally purchased a house in East Nashville. Yeah. But I lived with my aunt in Preston Taylor Public Housing again, and we were free as young men to hang out all night in the projects because everybody there we knew. Yeah. So we didn't have to worry about a crime being committed against us because we know the criminals. The criminals are friends and family. Yeah. So the people there aren't in a rush to get out because oftentimes they're not in a danger zone in that place. It's only everybody else looking on the outside looking in sees that danger zone there. They're in a place of normalcy. Yeah, it become normalized, and of course there are going to be those spikes of crime because crime is taking place where things are going to get violent and then spur out, and then we're going to see it on the news and TV, and it's like, oh man, it's dangerous over there. Yeah, but for most people, they're living day to day, just like people are living in other countries, and it's dangerous over there. Yeah, but obviously they going day in and day out. Yeah, with no issues. So.
Well, let me ask you this then: when I was coaching baseball, there was a young man that was really good. I just call him All Star. He could play he could do everything. One of the coaches knew the projects in Dodge City. So I said, "Where's All Star?" He said, "He's at home." I said, "Well, I'm gonna go get him." He said, "You can't go over there without me." I'm saying, "I'm black. They're black. Why can I go over there without you?" Yeah. He said, "You look too clean." Yeah. He said, "They'll mess you up." So I'm saying, all right, if I'm black and you black, why would you mess me up? Yeah. And he was like, you're a different kind of person. Yeah. Yeah. So explain it to me why they said that.
It's hard to say because I don't know that particular situation. I don't know that guy.
Well, he just said walking. From growing up in the project, walking in the projects.
In general, the projects are. The people here don't have as much as people in Brentwood per se. So if if we're looking at an area that is stricken by poverty and someone who is not of poverty, someone who is of means comes to that area, and if we hungry, you have food, we got to eat, right? So if you obviously come through here with food and we hungry, they gonna take that food. So basically he's saying you look like food. You gonna go through there looking like food.
So we gonna rob you.
They gonna get you. Yeah. Now I don't think that's always the case because once again, my dad in and out the projects when we was growing up because we got football players, baseball players all over the place. But
people knew you.
Yep. I mean, I guess.
So when I was over at the school, I'm sitting there, I'm trying to help the kids, but my mind was like, man, I hope they don't bust a window in my car. Yeah. But let me tell you this: when I was over there, I was really saddened. I had talked to like 6 boys. I think it was like 4 black, and then 2 other descents. And and the boys could clearly tell me that their dad's not there and what they're doing. Clearly, my dad's in jail. My dad's in jail. And when I see boys with not a decent haircut, not a decent shoes, who are we blaming for that? Are we blaming fathers or are we blaming society for boys not? Because like I said, the shelter stuff, that's gonna take me time to get over. I'm gonna do an episode on about being sheltered. Is that me now? Me being judged, I'm a father, right? So like my boys, they get a haircut every 2 weeks. Right. That's just I want my boys to look good. Right. These boys look rough. Yeah. So for me, I'm like, why don't they dad take pride into their sons' lives and make sure these boys look good? What am I missing? What am I missing on why my mentality thinks that way? Because I grew up with a father, or what?
It's a couple of things that's going on there, and I look at it like you are looking at the end result and only basing your judgments off of that. But we got to look a little bit deeper. If your son has a cold, you'll bring him in, you get him some soup, get him a blanket, boom, boom, boom. Now he's cured of the cold. Everything's all good. But the next day, if it's snowing outside and he run outside with no jacket and a t-shirt on, you're not going to be like, all right, I just cure your cold again. You're gonna be like, hey, put on a jacket. That's why you got a cold in the first place. You're gonna stop it at the source. Right? You're gonna eliminate it at the source. And that's kind of what we're doing here. We're skipping eliminating it at the source, or even identifying it at the source, and we're going straight to, oh, you got a cold, just put on just get the soup in the blanket, right? So kind of the issue that we're facing is the reason that you are adamant about getting your son's haircut and the items that you are seeing is because of the position that you are in, because of the position that your parents were able to put you in, right? So a lot of it, is based off your individual merit, what you were able to do. But a lot of it also was based off what your father was able to do and what his father was able to do. It's been generational. Your father was able to put you in a good position. You able to put your sons in a good position. So your priorities are on haircuts. If these boys' fathers weren't able to put them in a good position, or his father's father wasn't able to put him in a good position, haircuts is the last thing on their list. So I know for a fact my success is a direct reflection of my parents' ability to navigate the crack era. Because I was born in '84, and that's when crack cocaine started to hit the black community like the opioid epidemic just hit us, hit America now. So because my father was able to not succumb to a drug addiction, and my mother was not able to succumb to drug addiction, it was easier for me to get where I am today. There's other people in my family, people that I grew up with, their parents did not navigate the crack epidemic that well, and their lives are affected by that. Right? So these young men that you're seeing, it has been numerous things that have happened to the black community en masse, like one after another. The war on drugs, the mass incarceration, once again, redlining. Your ancestors' ability to navigate those, it's been like survival of the fittest for black people, generation after generation after generation, in order for us to get to this point to even be on this podcast. So if his dad is locked up, more than likely his dad, his grandfather was locked up, right? And his grandfather might have been locked up, and then we got to ask, well, what were they locked up for? Were they criminal masterminds from birth, or were they locked up on trumped up drug charges? Because we know a white man and a black man can get the same kind of charge and then get different time spans for the same crime. So like, you ask, is it the father or is it society? Well, it's a combination of both. Because in America, society has come down hard on black men since the inception of America.
But and I want you to keep that energy. So when we're looking at crime, we're looking at sentencing and different drug crimes and stuff like that. Why? From my mind, I just don't understand how. I understand how all that affects fathers, and when we look at people in poverty and everything else, what can we do as men to try to help other men break the cycle? Me and you, we can hit all the problems. We know. You know more about the projects than I do, because I've never lived in the projects. So when you're talking, I'm just thinking of that young man, the young man I saw over at Lead School, who making an elf. And I'm like, dude, why are you making an elf? And then he said my daddy, but then the grandmama picked him up. He said he's staying with me. And so I don't understand, until I can get fathers who's been on drugs and stuff like that on this podcast, I probably wouldn't understand the plight of a man's mind. It's easy to go into bed and have that kid. That's easy. But so when men are laying in bed having a kid, we're not thinking about, I gotta raise this child just in case I get her pregnant. Now, I'm not talking like I'm an angel. I'm not. I admit that on my last podcast. I'm not an angel. But God kept me. But just seeing men now who's caught up in all kind of drug charges and stuff like that, who sometimes not able to take care of, because the system can jack you up, and you're not able to take care of your children. What can men do now to try to navigate through that?
Well, the one thing is, what you're doing now, mentoring. One of the biggest things is mentoring, is getting out into the community and helping as much as possible, showing young black men positive black male role models that they can latch on to, that they can look up to, and that show them that people care, love, and respect. Like, that's the number one thing. And I have to give like a shout out to, like, there is an army of black men that do this exact thing in the form of coaches. Like little league coaches and football, basketball, baseball do this for free. Like year after year, they do it for free. And matter of fact, they spend money to do it. Some of them have kids playing, but a lot of them don't. And oftentimes when we're discussing all of the issues in the black community and what the black community needs, there is an army of people who are out there giving the community what it needs, and everybody acts like they don't see what these people are doing. I've been coaching since my son was 5. And every year and it's not even just the coach, it's a community of black people. I coach on Jefferson Street for the Jefferson Street Bills. At practice, there is a community of people that are just at the practices, just watching the kids play football at the games. They trying to travel, trying to raise money, all to support these black boys and girls that are doing the cheerleading. And the thing is, we just need more of that, because these boys, see, man, it's a community of people that love me, that believe in me, that are encouraging me, that want the best out of me. And we just need that more and more. And it takes time, because every one of those boys that is saved, one of those boys and girls that is saved, they'll turn into not only a productive member of the black community, but then they'll turn into a coach, or they'll turn into a good father, or they'll see a coach out there coaching up a kid, and they'll be like, man, I can't wait to do that with my son. Like, you have to instill values, and that takes time. So what you're doing now, what those coaches are doing, and spending time with your own boys, and, you know, raising up your own boys so they have those same values. I would say that's the number one thing.
And that's true. What can we do? As the question I thought about it now is, how I'm up here, I want to do something for fathers in the future. Hopefully I can land a grant to do, you know, to provide coaching, to provide mentorship, to encourage dads to be there for their kids so they can have a fulfillment of that. Someone like me who didn't grow up in poverty, who grew up middle class, and if you want to continue to use the word shelter, I'm fine with that.
For the record, I didn't say shelter. Your comment said shelter.
Now I know you just said. I ain't got over that yet, Jim. I haven't got over that comment. But how can we change a dad's mindset who don't want to be there for their kids? They're like, you know what? Forget, you know, I can't get along with the baby mama. How can we reach a dad to tell him the importance of being there for their kid? Man,
I'm real big on encouragement. You know, as we should make a really big deal out of Mother's Day. Mother's Day, you can't get into a restaurant. You know what I mean? All the restaurants are packed. On Father's Day, you can go wherever you want. Right. So a few years ago, when Father's Day started rolling around, this was a number of years ago, before the pandemic is when we first started, I started getting with a lot of the guys that I am with, especially a lot of the younger dads, and started to do like a Father's Day barbecue to tell all these young dads that were in my circle, a lot of them like my younger brother, my younger cousins, that, man, I see what you're doing. I'm proud of you, man. Keep it up. Keep at it. And sometimes, as just being a man in itself, you don't get a lot of pat on the backs. You don't get a lot of thank yous. You just got to do what you do, get up the next day and keep doing it, because that's what's expected of a man. You know, as we know that. So sometimes, especially from other men, for another man to acknowledge, I see what you're doing, I respect it, keep at it, that means a lot, and that can help you keep going. So for me, that's what I think helps a lot. If you see, because most men, as they get older, especially, like you were saying, they lay down and don't think about the consequences. Or that's what a lot of young men do. But as men get older, you know, people, especially when men start thinking about legacy and what have I done with my life, everybody wants to do better. A cousin of mine just came home. He did like 10 years. And all he wants to do now is spend time and build with his kids. And encouraging him is just like one of my main things. Like, man, I see what you're doing, and I'm so happy to see it. Keep it up. So I think if you can get a program that just brings those men in who already want to get back on the right path and offer them encouragement, offer them a place to talk, to share ideas, to build with each other. Yeah, I think it'll be a great way to expend those efforts and resources.
Well, as we close, I want to ask this question: do you think we'll ever start lowering the gap? I know there are some great African American black fathers out here. I know a lot of them. Just when I see the statistics and when I go to schools and stuff and I see it, it's sometimes I'd be like, why fight this cause? Yeah. Why fight the cause? Because people gonna keep having kids with no daddies. Yeah. There's gonna be people that's not responsible. Yeah. And I'm not judging nobody. I just know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. I understand.
You know, so my question is, you know, will this gap ever get close where more men will take the responsibility like you to take care of 3 children and put them in position? Or do you just think society is so far gone it's never going to change?
No, it definitely will. The gap will definitely close. It'll get smaller and smaller. And even if we were to look statistically, I haven't looked at them recently, but over time, it's already getting smaller. There was a recent statistic that black men are the most engaged with their children. Yeah. So like as time progresses, and that's the thing, that things take time. Instilling values take time. Building up things over generations take time, especially when the odds are stacked against you. And the case of the African American community in the history of the United States, which is a whole nother podcast, things are stacked against us. So that's fine. We can fight through that. We fought through it historically. We'll continue to fight through it. But things are hopeful for us. They're hopeful for black fathers. We just got to keep marching forward, keep doing what we're doing, stay engaged in the community, keep working with those black boys, keep working with those young women, and keep building, man. And the future is bright for us. I don't have a doubt.
I'm going to ask one question. This may be controversial. Yeah. And I was going to end, but you said something that rang my ear. Okay. All right. I've heard this a lot. Things are stacked up against us as black men. Yep. I don't look at it every day that way. All right. I heard Chris Rock say something. He said when he goes to ATM, he's not worried about whites. He's worried about blacks robbing him. Okay. All right. So name 3 in your honest opinion. Do you think that's stacked up against us as men to number one be that can help us not become a good father? So when you say things are stacked up against us, what are some things you think that's stacked against me and you to prevent us from moving forward to be good dads? Just your honest opinion.
Things that are okay. So once again, it's we have to look at things in a historical context. Yeah. So when in the 60s, the black family was strong and together. Right?
We had factory jobs.
We had factory jobs, right. Yeah. So in the 70s, when those factories slowly start to close, right, and there's not as many factory jobs left, and the welfare system starts to come into play.
Yeah, I remember that.
How do they offer the black family welfare? Because the farms are starting to go down too. So the farms need help too, that are mostly ran by white families. They give those white farms subsidies to give them financial help. But those black factory workers, they give them welfare, but you can only get the welfare if the black man is not in the household. So even Martin Luther King has a quote about this, that black men have to leave their families so their kids can get government bread and peanut butter.
I didn't know that.
That's
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can look that up.
And I'm a diehard King fan.
Yeah,
I didn't know
you can look that up. Okay, yeah, so the government assists driving black men out of the home with the welfare system, which is starting in the 70s. So we're already, this is breaking up the black family then. So then in the 80s, we see the drug epidemic hit the neighborhood, and now we know through released documents that the Iran-Contra program, that the government knew about these drugs coming into the neighborhoods. They didn't do anything about it because it was helping funding wars in different countries. So this is, once again, the government is assisting or condoning the destruction of the black families and black neighborhoods, black communities. And then in the not to mention when we are fighting back against that with organizations like the Black Panther Party. We have government programs like COINTELPRO, Counterintelligence Pro, where they're infiltrating the organizations with government agents to break up these organizations that don't want anything but the betterment of black people. We also know that they were harassing people like Dr. King, Malcolm X. This is government sanctioned harassment and destruction of black leaders. What has always happened historically to black leader figures? They get assassinated. That's and I didn't want to go on this tangent, but you asked me the question.
That's what we do, man.
So that's subconsciously telling the black man, you stand up and what? You get stomped out. You get stamped out. That goes back to slavery with buck breaking.
But let me ask you this: is 2023.
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah.
We're in now.
Yeah.
What are things that's holding us back from being, number one, good fathers? What's holding us back?
Right.
Are we going to continue to say the white man's holding us back? Are we going to continue to say ourselves are holding us back? We all got to make decisions.
Right.
As a dad.
Right.
So, and I understand the history lesson. I clearly understand it.
Okay.
And you're totally right on that.
Okay.
Because I didn't even understand the welfare plight till probably over the summer when I did a speaking engagement and someone told me about that.
Okay.
And this one black conservative said we got to stop making welfare an excuse.
Right.
To saying that welfare destroyed the black family, and it didn't. And it was just like absent fathers destroyed the black family. So it was a whole different topic that I was like, I ain't built for that. I'm built to listen to somebody debate, but it ain't for me. But, you know, what's right now you think is the biggest thing that's holding from black men to become better fathers? And I know we have whites that's out here that are not good fathers and other races, but you black, I'm black. Yeah. And most of the kids I work with are black. Yeah. What do you think is holding these dads back now from being good fathers? Well,
I'm glad you said you understand the historical context because by the time you're a father, you don't come out of the womb a father. You're not a father until you're an adult or a young adult. By then, you've already made numerous decisions as a young person when you are stricken by poverty, when you are under the conditions of people who made decisions before you were even born. So if you are in the projects, living with less, those beat up shoes, that no haircut, in survival mode, and you're making decisions off survival mode. You go into a store and steal, or you see people who are drug dealers and you got opportunity to sell drugs, and then you get caught. Now you go to prison, you come out of prison, now you got a record. So now you're trying to get established and you can't get a job. Like you said, everybody is in a wolf mode as a young man. The hormones is out there. You out there chasing those girls. You have a child. Now you're a child with the child. You've made numerous bad decisions. You're 18 years old. You have a child, but you're a child with the child, and you're asking, how can you not be a good father? Because you didn't start off at 18 with a clean slate, a high school diploma, and on your way to college, and decided you weren't going to be you're going to be a bad father. It starts when you are a kid with the dirty shoes and no haircut and no father figure of your own.
So you don't know how to become a father. So you just do the norm. Okay?
Exactly.
It's your hormones and all that.
It's generational. It's going from generation to generation to generation. And it's not until that kid with the dirty shoes and the no haircut, which there's nothing wrong with having dirty shoes and no haircut.
It's not. It's just the dad side of me. When I see the kids, it's just that dad side of me comes out.
It's not until that kid runs into a man that says, hey, let me take you under my wing. Hey, I'm gonna take you to my barber. Hey, this is how you get cleaned up, and man, you look good, feel good. Man, how the grades in school. Hey man, focus on them grades. Don't be chasing them girls. I know you be chasing them girls. Focus on them grades. How many A's you get? Look, let me hey, you get all A's. Me, you, and so. We gonna go to the mall and I'll get new shoes. Cause you see his shoes it's not until he runs into that, and then you be like, oh, this is my little college fraternity thing. This is my pictures from when I was in college. And he was like, oh, you went to college? It's not until he runs into something that shows him there's something other than the generational influences he's had over and over again that he says, oh, I don't gotta keep doing what I've been doing or what we've been doing. I can do what he did because this looks better than prison and crime and whatever else. This looks better than that.
Yeah.
And I think I'll go that route.
Yeah.
Or unless he's just a special kid and he's like, man, I'm not doing this no more. I'm gonna go that route on my own. Yeah. There's a lot of kids that do it that way too. They don't even get a mentor. They on their own. They just have more self-awareness. Yeah. And they just take a different route on their own. Yeah. So it's not until either those special kids come look and take a different route, or somebody comes up and shows them a different way. Yeah. But when you go in generation to generation of poverty after poverty, which we know why that poverty started. Yeah. It's going to be hard to just suddenly become a good father if you didn't have a father figure to begin with.
Well, I mean, I clearly, you taught me some history lessons that I did know and I didn't know. Yeah. But one thing, as we wrap up, I probably said that like a preacher. We got to wrap up. We go right back. After I left that school, I was driving home and it really bothered me to see the young men that I talked to, because I'm like, what can I do to help them? Yeah. You know, am I dreaming too big to feel like someone like me who grew up in a two-parent home could go into the projects and try to save a few young men? Because you have some moms that's been through a lot of crap, and I'm not built to deal with that. Yeah. And so that's what I probably stopped mentoring in 2016, because I couldn't deal with moms that, and I don't want to say angry black moms because they give me a bunch of comments, but that's who I dealt with. Yeah. Who had attitudes and mood swings, and when you wasn't raised that way, it threw me completely off. Yeah. And I was like, these people crazy. Yeah. So my last question to you is that, you know, how can we help? I know mentorship is key, and we use that word real loosely. Right. I like mentoring more hands-on. Yeah. Like, I'm going to pick you up. You know, I'm going to be there for you. I got a kid now who needs me more than ever. He's going through some issues, and I said, you call me every day. Yeah. Because he needs a male figure to talk to. Yeah. So, but like kids in the projects, Preston Taylor, Universal, Dodge, I see it, and I feel bad that I only can do so much. So what do you think us as black people as a race, those who are successful, what can we do? This is the last question. Yeah, what can we do to try to help break that, man, and help some of these kids in poverty have a shot?
I'm glad you're ending with that question. I'm gonna end with a story that my father told as we were discussing once creating a nonprofit of our own, and he didn't come up with this story. It's a story that he's heard. It's a fairly common story. Other people may have heard it, but this is the story that he told in the discussion of what the purpose of this organization would be, and basically what our purpose is. Like you were saying, what the people who are successful, what can you do, and it can be sometimes be overwhelming knowing how big the problem is. And he told the story of a couple walking on a beach, and then they see a young man on the beach, and the tide has pushed all these starfish up onto the shore, and the young man is grabbing starfish and he's throwing them back into the ocean one after one, and I mean it's 1 million starfish on the beach, and he's frantically like sweating, picking them up, throwing them in, and the couple who's walking down is like, hey man, what are you doing? Like there's no way that you can save all of those starfish. Like this is a pointless endeavor. And the young man says, man, if I can just save at least one, that's all that matters. And my father told that story to say, as hard as you try, you're not going to be able to save everybody, but your efforts are not in vain if you can save at least one. And that should be our goal. We to work hard, to go frantically, to do as much as you can, knowing that you can't save everybody. But if you save at least one, none of your efforts were wasted, because to that one, it's going to mean the world. It's going to mean the world to them. It's going to be life-changing to them. And that's really all that we can do. That's really all that matters.
Well, I appreciate that, because I'm trying. Sometimes I think, like, with all the 16 boys on our program, I want to save all of them. And the time, if I can't save one, I'm frustrated. I'm like, what did I do wrong? You know, should I call more? Should I go visit them more? What, you know, it's this work, mentorship is very hard on me a lot. because I want to be as perfect as possible and be there for you. Know that you there, but I know there's so many other kind of like that that mountain that shows success and all the issues that get to success. Sometimes I feel like that's what I do in mentorship. Yeah, you know, but you know, it's people like you that I can always lean on for encouragement. And the last guest, you know, people that can say, "Okay, Mark, get your head together," because the work is tough. Yeah, and there are many days I'd be like, I ain't doing this no more. Yeah, I'm out of here, man. Jim probably tired of me talking about because I didn't grow up that way. And sometimes I was like, if I'd have grew up in poverty and didn't have a father, would I have a stronger mentality of what I'm doing? Yeah. But I can't seem to get away from it. Yeah. And it seems like it's always around me. Yeah. And somebody asked me, if you stopped today, would you have any regrets? Yeah. And I feel like I've done enough. Yeah. But every time I go to like one of these schools, that's low income schools, and I see these boys, and I'm like, God, I know I can put them in position. Yeah. I can get them there. Yeah. Yeah. But then you got to deal with everything on the bottom of that mountain before they get to that success. And I'm like, how much more do I want to deal with the bottom of the mountain? Right. You know, mom that's maybe pissed off at the daddy and they mad at you, you know, all those things build up. Right. And I'd be like, it ain't worth it to me anymore. I was like, you know what? Everybody just deal with their own problems. But my mom said this, and Jimmy, go ahead and hit the music. I'm going to close. Is that my mom said that you was raised with two great parents and you was blessed with a wealth of knowledge. And she said, son, if you can't save one child, you selfish. There you go. That hit me. They hit me like a ton of bricks. So that's probably the best quote that kept me going. Yeah. So thanks, brother-in-law, for coming on. Sir, we got to do a part 2 next year. Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed it. We got to talk about being sheltered. Yeah, let's do it. I ain't going to get over that. And I think history lessons you are great on, man. So where can people find you on social media, man? And hold up. We did not talk about that you are an author. Yeah. Whoa. I had totally forgot that my brother-in-law has written 2 great books. Yeah. So tell people where they can, tell them the title of your book real quick. Keep the music going, Jim. What can they find about your book and being an author? Darn, Nate, how I forget that?
It's all good. It's all good. It's not even about that. But the first book is called A Poor Excuse for a Book by Nathan J. McDougal. And it is a collection of short stories. It's a very different book. The first half are true stories about my childhood, about growing up. Yeah. So you can see a lot of that. And the second half is kind of why I write as fiction, and kind of influenced by that first half. So it's a very peculiar book. The second book is my debut novel. It's called Delle Beta. It's about a young man gets pulled into like a video game world and has to try to find his way out. So more like a epic fantasy science fiction style book.
Well, tell them where they can find you on Amazon. Yeah, man, I feel bad. Yeah,
no problem. Just type in A Poor Excuse for a Book if you're looking for that first one. Is more of a short read, more like Twilight Zone, Twilight Zone-ish, or just like short stories. It's called A Poor Excuse for a Book, and the second one is called Delle Beta. Dragon, D-A-L-E, Beta, B-E-T-A. Just type those into Amazon; they'll pop right up. Right there at your disposal. That's it.
Man, support my brother on his books. He's a great writer. I thought this other book is what, like a Harry Potter similar? Yeah. Man, somebody got to sign him, man, because he's a writer. And I need him to help me write my book. So thanks, Nate, coming on. Sir. Follow him on social media. Is it just Nathan McDougal, right?
Yep, Nathan J. McDougal on Instagram. And then you can find the books and stuff on there as well.
Well, support him. And, hey, that's what we got to do. Yes, we got to support each other. Yes, so thank you so much for listening to another episode. Stronger Than My Father. I'm so tired. Stronger Than My Father podcast. If you like what you hear and you're watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button. Subscribe so you can hear more episodes of us talking about fatherhood and what can we do to break the cycle. Thanks again, Jim McCarthy, for all this hard work to help produce our podcast. We are at 50 now. We got 50 podcast episodes in, so I'm really, really happy to look forward to the next 50 and more. God bless you. Stay safe till you see me again on another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast.